Hello, welcome to Dissident Canada. This is gonna be a follow-up to yesterday's video because after I started saying, hey, there's probably gonna be an election on the horizon relatively soon. Probably not in December, but maybe next year, very early, maybe at the same timeline as this year. The federal finance minister, I believe it was, came out and was like, yeah, we're not so sure about this budget and the form in which we're gonna bring it out. We may be going to an election. Like, that was his tone, and it's like, okay, yeah, we're probably getting an election sooner than everyone freaking thought. So I thought, hey, let's take a look at some of the issues, and how candidates and specifically leaders should talk about them. Like, the big one is Trump. It's how do you deal with Trump, all right? So I think you're probably not going to get a lot of Orange Man bad, as you have seen with Carney in toning down the rhetoric of Orange Man bad. Now, he's a little bit hot and cold, but he's playing a very narrow lane of, look, I am trying to get one over on Trump. It's a hard thing, but Trump's, doing all of this damage to Canada, and it's very, very narrow lane he has to walk, because as Prime Minister, he still can't piss off Trump enough by going Orange Man bad, because he needs to deal with Trump. And if you piss Trump off, it's very hard to get a deal. Like, basically everybody else is going to have an easier time with the Trump issue of just saying, look, he couldn't get a deal. He said he would get a deal. He hasn't gotten a deal. Trump has made his demands very clear. Most of them are very easy to do, which we should do anyways because they benefit Canadians, such as the fentanyl problem, border security, defense spending, like, very simple, very easy things to just, come out and say, we should be doing this anyways. Look at the state of Canada. We have to do this. All right. And if it helps us with President Trump, all the much better. Canada, the Canadian economy is built on intercooperation with the United States. Part of the United States economy is built on intercooperation with Canada. We should work to strengthen those bonds. We have, not lived up to our side of the bargain. We've done some bad things. That is going, the we've done some bad things from the Canadian perspective is not going to go over well, but it is the truth. They probably will never say that, even though, again, 100% true. Like, Canada has destroyed the American softwood lumber industry. And it's not just because, Canada's mostly trees. Look at how tight and constrict the U.S. EPA laws are for the lumber industry, and then compare that to what Canada allows the softwood lumber industry to get away with, and how it, like, America started to tighten, and Canada was like, oh boy, we can absolutely take their industry and destroy them, even though, it's a little hard. And it's the same thing with the auto industry. We did some shenanigans through NAFTA and previous trade deals that sucked that out over to Canada instead of staying in, Michigan, Wisconsin. There are some in Pennsylvania and some other states. Like, we absolutely took that away. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. So, like, Canada has not been the best actor when it comes to friendly economic relationships. And that's even before, you get into illegals, drugs, gun running, criminal money laundering for the Chinese, like, all that really bad stuff that's going on, right? But it's a relatively simple issue for the Conservatives to win on, as long as they don't let their TDS get to them, because they do suffer from it. Like, you saw that earlier in the year. Like, they were trumpeting around Orange Man bad because they thought it would make them win. Like, anyways, the immigration topic is going to be also very important, and it's going to be relatively easy for, again, everybody that's not the liberals to win on it. Like, you take a very moderate position very early on. You say, look, Canada's suffering right now. We're having a hard enough time taking control or taking care of our own. We need to deal with that first. We've got terrible economy. We've got the trade war that these idiots caused. Like, always throw that in there because that's always good. Even though it's not entirely true. Anyways, and then you walk a very tight line saying, hey, we're going to reduce immigration. Yes, we understand that everybody would like it to stop, but the realistic take on this is there are, say, industries where we cannot supply enough people. Like, we're going to limit it to high-class people that we want and need. You know, we have a doctor shortage. We have a nurse shortage. We're only going to bring in the ones who pass and qualify. Like, you very clearly state something like that, right? The temporary foreign worker program, we have to cut it. We've tried it. It doesn't work. It's hurting Canadians. Has to go. All right? And once we get out of this situation, we will reevaluate as a nation what we want to do with immigration policy. But until then, we kind of got to crack down. We got to deal with the fraud, abuse, and outright disrespect of our immigration laws. We're going to have investigations. We're going to have to do this. And we just have to. Like, you just very clearly, painfully simply lay it out there on the line of, like, hey, look, this is what we have to do. You just got to be real with people, and people will buy it, all right? Even if you're lying your ass off, if you sound to Canadians relatively moderate, and it sounds authentic, all right, you can sell almost anything to the Canadian populace, all right, at this point in time. You do not have to be, you know, the theatrics of Donald Trump. And I know people want, specifically on the immigration issue, to be like, we're just going to deport them all, get rid of them, the illegals are gone, we're going to build a beautiful wall. Like, we'll build a beautiful northern wall too. Like, that's what people want. Canada, it's not going to fly very well in Canada. The groups, other than the liberal, like, if you were a liberal party, all right, the coalition you need to build will not go for that. I don't think. Like, you're going to have to make a little bit of a concession, all right? But you're basically going to do the same thing, all right? You're just speaking in a very matter-of-factly, very calm demeanor. If you do that, it's ridiculous how fast you'll trigger the liberals to go insane mode, and they will have consequences of that, because they're not going to get the young people like they were if they go insane, all right? You'll get a certain degree, but the youth vote, all right, will likely, if the Conservatives play this even remotely halfway decently, will lean hard enough to them that they will win 1 to 2%, by 1 to 2%, all right, of the popular vote, which is really hard for them, by the way, okay? Like, they can do that. Other issue, obviously the economy. Like, it's all I've been really talking about here is using other issues to talk about the economy. You're gonna have to play this super hard on the liberals. It's not entirely true. Canada is not entirely getting wrecked by liberal policy. It's getting completely wrecked by the Eurodollar. Don't get me wrong when I say this. I do not 100% blame the liberals. They do deserve quite a lot of blame. But the Eurodollar system is just turning into a wrecking ball in the last 5 years for anybody that isn't America. And it's doing damage to America, but more so everybody else, as can be seen by the state of basically the global of the world. Um, Even like really the Eurodollar system turned into a wrecking ball just before '08, and it's just getting worse and worse and worse. We may, in my lifetime, live out the full extent of the dollar milkshake, which is bad. But, anyways, how you play the economy, all right? You got to focus on Canadians and you've got to lie your ass off because there's not really much the Canadian government can do at this point. To be honest, like this is 100% real. If you say moved interest rates to zero, all right, doesn't change a damn thing. Which bank is going to lend into the real economy, all right? Now you'll probably help save some people from losing their homes, obviously, and you'll save some businesses from going under when they refi their commercial real estate loans, all right? But much else than that, you're not really going to save the real economy. All right? You're going to have to hammer home on using Canadian resources because, like, you're going to have to hammer that hard. You go hard on it, but you don't go to the extreme where you say, yes, we are going to exploit the ever-living hell out of it. You continue on saying, hey, we got to make this easy, faster, and simpler for people to spin up small businesses into medium businesses into large businesses. You don't have to go into detail about that, but you should provide some, like just a way. Like you got to do more than bog standard conservatism, all right, to win on that front there. And you should also propose radically interesting ideas. Like you're going to have to propose nation building projects more than, hey, we're going to build a pipeline. Hey, we're going to build a port. Hey, we're going to do this. All right? Say, hey, we're losing control of the Arctic Circle as the fabled Northwest Passage appears to be starting to become a very viable shipping route. We need to reinforce up there. We need to do better by the Yukon, the Northwest Territories, and Nunavut. We can build really good infrastructure from Canada, from the more southern parts of Canada up to there so that we can have a better flow of goods so that Canadian businesses have another place to sell their goods and that the goods that get there are cheaper for the people who live there. Now, you're not going to win the North. You're not going to win those areas. Likely, they kind of swing weird ways. But you're going to show the Canadian populace with that idea that you are thinking of Canada first, which is the big thing, all right? Because again, if you can build like decent infrastructure going up that way, and I'm not just talking like roads, I'm talking, robust electrical systems so that you can have, say, primary refinement up there, and then you can have decent rail infrastructure so that you can, say, mine gold up there, primary refine it up there from ore with mixed with everything till it's pure metal, and then you can, say, I don't know, move it down to where like either BC, so you can either export it, Quebec for the same reason, or you can move it to, somewhere in Toronto where it's going to be most likely sold as an asset to rich people, and then the gold stays in Canada, or the Canadian government could come in and buy it up and have a gold reserve. Or better yet, if you invested in, like, if you actually made the the idea that the government is going to actually do investment, all right? And think of it like an investment. And you say, okay, we're going to get paid in gold. So you pay, say, you know, upwards of $10 billion to get some mining, some mines going, some gold mines going at like large scale. All right. And you want that money, you want that investment to pay back and not just in taxes. So you say, hey, you're going to give us a cut of the gold, and that's going to build our gold reserves back. Not that like gold reserves mean anything in the real monetary system. It's just when shit goes bad, you just start selling gold because it fills in um, the budget, which is why a lot of central banks are buying gold right now, anyways. So, um, I would actually bring back and the pitch for like a robust rail network because we have a rail network. It's not very robust. Like it's there and it works, but you kind of want more, especially if you're going to do, in like I'm just thinking local for me, Ontario, Quebec. If you really wanted to do more mining and you wanted to do it efficiently, you would move the ore by rail because you can do a lot more, and it's a less strain on the grid on the road grid because like think about how there's very little people that live in Ontario outside of southern Ontario. All right, those roads get clogged real quick with trucks because that's basically what they're used for the most time. So if you're doing more mining and stuff, you got to move the ore, all right, to at a certain point. So you want to do it efficiently, and like there's enough space up there that you can build rail. All right, it's not that bad. Like bringing back the railroads is probably the best move forward for the Canadian economy. And you know, I know the premiers are out there saying, "Hey, look, we're getting rid of interprovincial trade barriers, and they're going to start next year, and that's great." But you're going to have to be like, "No, we're ripping this shit down." There's going to be free trade 100% between all the provinces. There isn't going to be any form of tax of moving one good from say BC to PEI or anywhere else. There's not going to be one tax. You are not going to have to pay other than for those shipping. All right? Like that needs to be front and foremost because my economic theory of how you build a robust nation is very close to Putin's. You have to have control of the domestic market, or there has to be a domestic market. If you are like if you're too dependent on exports, or to say here in Ontario, the service economy is really big, or tech as well in my area. Like you're too over reliant on that. It can be there. It's just it has to be a smaller percentage. You have to boost up, manufacturing. You're gonna have there's like a lot of people being laid off from manufacturing jobs right now, uh, due to auto. So like if you made it possible to have, real manufacturing in Canada, you know, remember when Mastercraft was made in Canada instead of is I believe it's a factory in Shenzhen, China? Like come on now. Like eh, manufacturing is it's kind of a hard job, but like they're damn good jobs. They're hella reliable too for the most part. Pay well too. Um so like there's going to be a lot of focus on that. I would also play up a little bit, lean into the social aspects of Canada. I would be very careful because you are fighting a multi-billion-dollar PR campaign of that is against anything close to right wing when it especially comes to social issues. But I would trigger people with that, all right? I would, like, here's an issue that's going around in Alberta with the teachers union strike, and there's probably going to be another fucking teachers union strike here in Ontario next year. I would outright come and say school choice. That my federal government will be for school choice. We will help whatever province wants to get school choice going because we need to put children first. Enough of putting unions first. Kids come first. And just hammer on that. And then when they eventually attack you, because they will take that fucking bait like there's no tomorrow, which is good. Because you want them to. Because it's where they're extremely weak. All right? This is where you can win a lot of parents that you don't own. All right? With school choice. Because parents are, in fact, sick and tired of what's going on in schools. The problem is, schools are so fucking vindictive. And I've lived through this. They are fucking vindictive. And they've only gotten worse since I've gotten out of school. You become the people's champion on this issue. Like, school choice is a fantastic thing. The money follows the kid. So, like, you know, you've got a bad school in your area, but you've got, you know, the equivalent of a charter school, and it's only going to cost you, you know, $500 extra a year to get your kid in there, and they're going to have a leg up. That's fantastic. Or, you know, you've got, like in the case of women, there's mom groups. Like, you get a mom group together, you get all the kids, say you get, what is it? It would be like a group of 10, right? 10 parents. And they form their own little small private community school, because I think that's the minimum you would need. And you could just hire a teacher with that money. Like, it would be, I forget here what's it in Ontario, but it's like it would be like, it's like $9,000 to $12,000 they spend per kid a year, something like that now. Most of that goes to the teachers union, by the way. Or a decent chunk of that goes to the teachers union. Fuck the teachers union. And then they can just hire a teacher. Just not that hard, you know. You just got to find a place for, you know, a teacher and 10 kids to be taught. Like, school choice, you're going to have to explain it, which is the only hard thing. But if you come out and you specifically coy about it and you say, yeah, school choice, we're going to be super school choice. This is what the federal Minister of Education is going to be pushing in the new government, is we're going to make a push for school choice, put kids first. You know, a little stronger than that. Teachers unions, you know, freak the fuck out, rightfully so, from their position. They're still assholes. Fuck them. And you get attacked by it. And then you can explain it. All right? And then you get those clips going viral if you're smart and know social media. You know, frame it in a way of like, oh, hey, blah, 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 owned a stupid reporter on education. Like, it's not hard to do. Crime is also going to be a big thing. I know there's a whole bunch of statistics coming out saying, oh, yeah, crime's down, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, so you can really hide violent crime rates by just not reporting them, for the most part. There's a few crimes that you can't really hide, such as murder, because there's a body and there's a trail of that. So, when they say that, bring up the murder rates, because they're not going down, for the most part. Like, if you're speaking in Ontario and you speak Toronto, it's gone up. Last year, it did a dip in 23, and then in 24 it did a slight jump up. But like the murder rate is it's only like the total murders that they count as murders is only like 133 that I was looking at, unless I was misreading that, because that does seem low. But like the problem is other crimes that are happening, and like if the murder rate isn't going down, then the violent crime rate is not going down. You're not going to stop violent crime, but not murders. They both, as history has shown, they both drop at the relative same rates. Okay? So, like, that's going to be important. The slogans, they work, but man, you got to come up with some pretty good ones and have some substance behind them. Like, that's just how things roll. Because the slogans didn't save you, Pierre, last time. They're not going to save you this time. But, anyways, just a little bit analysis on if there is an election. It's going to be incredibly close. Again. It will likely be within 2 points. The two leaders, the number one party and the number two party will be within, say, 2 points, maybe 4 points, nothing more. I know there's a whole bunch of polls that have come out and say, oh, conservatives like plus 10, plus 30, they're gonna have like a super majority government or whatever, and it's like, an election hasn't even been called yet. And we know for a fact with Canadian pollsters that they tighten up as the race goes on. As an election becomes more and more real, these pollsters tighten and herd themselves because they obviously don't know how to poll accurately, worth a damn, from 10, 12 months out, or even a month out. They're not like, say, the People's Pundit, Richard Braris, over at, the People's Pundit, and his polling from Big Data Poll, who was polling correctly on Trump within 1 to 2% for a year and a half before that election. But that's because, Rich knows what the fuck he's doing. Anyways, that's the video for today. Probably something a little bit, I don't know, more interesting or more fun tomorrow. But, yeah, continue to expect the Canadian election. Until then, have a good day.